I'd originally planned for this video to be a live stream of editing negative photos. I got nervous, so we're just gonna do a pre-recorded segment and see how I feel about it. Overall, the process of developing my negatives, in particular we're talking Kentmere Panchromatic 400, very affordable, or at least affordable compared to many other films. It's a film that I by default put into my cameras, Kentmere 400 or Kentmere 100. I understand there's a lot more experience I still need with film photography to develop a full rounded opinion on which films I prefer, but Kentmere 400 and 100 are by far what I use the most, and I am on the most part happy with pretty much all the photos that I've made with them, with the exception of their compositions and stuff. But with regard to the film and what I can do with the film, Kentmere is my go-to. One thing that I think you might find is you might be somewhat underwhelmed by my workflow for film photography, particularly black and white. I scan it with my camera, so I take photos of the negative, I then invert them, which I'll show you here, and then I just play with the curve. That's all I do with my black and white photography. There have been a few instances where I add a bit of contrast with the contrast slider, but that has been incredibly rare. So we've got 1, 2, 3, we've got 10 photos. I've excluded 2 of them because they're more on the private side. These were made with the Rolleiflex 2.8D. This is the test roll of film, but I thought that there'd be a cool example of how straightforward your negative editing can be on Lightroom Classic. So this is what the photo of the negative looks like. And keep in mind that I don't process or post-process tons and tons of film at a time. It'll be maybe 6 rolls at most. So though I could automate everything, I prefer doing them by hand, one by one. I feel like I have more control over what I'm doing. I'm not one to really use presets and stuff like that, at least not yet. So this is what the negative looks like, and we've got it here in Lightroom. Let's hit R to show you the crop. That is actually what it looks like. And those of you that have been watching my stuff over the past few years, you'll know that I'm not too concerned over resolution, over details like that, because I feel that if you have control of your camera settings and you have an understanding of DPI, if you have an understanding of what you can and what you shouldn't print, you'll be fine. So this crop I'm not phased with. Besides, this will actually be a 1x1 by the time we're done with this. So let's just leave it at this. One thing that is very important to note is my scanning method using my camera, where I take a photo of the negative. I don't have an appropriate lens that'll help me really hone in on that negative in a manner that I won't have all of this dead space surrounding the photo of my negative. And because we have all this dead space surrounding the photo of my negative, you'll find that my curve is quite compressed. And I get the feeling that if I had a more appropriate lens for this process, where I can have the negative take up the majority of what my sensor is capturing, I suspect that my scans might come out with a more appropriate dynamic range. Having said that, with how things are going right now, this is what I have and this is what I'll make do with, and I'm very happy with it for now. Luckily, I keep my negatives, and down the line, if I choose to rescan them or buy a dedicated scanner or go to a lab to scan it, I'll have the option to do that. But for now, this is what I have and this is what I work with. And all the film photos that you've seen from me, whether it be here on YouTube or on Instagram or wherever else, this is the method that I've been using, and there is always room for improvement. I'm gonna go straight on. We're in the develop module, by the way, straight on to our curve. And because this is a negative, we need to reverse it. We now have the positive version of the negative. I'm gonna hit V to convert this to a black and white image. V. There we go. This over here is going to be your highlights, and this over here is going to be your shadows, because it's the reverse of what we're used to. So if you bring it up, let's bring this point all the way roughly to here, and then bring the shadow. This is where you can play around with. There we go. That's it. Hit R, 1x1, and crop this in to its square frame. Hit R again, and then hit F. There we have it. That is as straightforward as my negative editing goes. Now we can decide how much, come on, let's get this in the screen. How much of this, see that we've blown out our highlights now. So you want to preserve your highlights, and this is about as much as I'm going to go at the highlights over here. I don't want to blow them out. You can see the clouds over here. And with the shadows, I think this is unnecessarily dark. So in terms of exposure balance here, we do not have a particularly well balanced image. The sun was setting and it wasn't shining really well on Julia's face. If, for example, the sky might not have been in this photo, the contrast or the exposure value balance would have been more appropriate, because then maybe her face would have popped out with the tree or the bush in the background. This is a memory more than anything else. Right click, settings, copy settings, and everything is fine. Just copy everything that they've got here. There we go. Command V, and that is the settings from the previous image. Let's just double check the crop here. There we go. R, and we can just adjust. Lovely. And I think I'm happy with this staying right here at its first little black point here, because this is nice and dark over here, and you've got a nice gradient from your extreme shadow through to the rest of the shadows, and then the shadows on her face. Let's see how detailed we are here. That's pretty lovely. Next photo, Command V. Same. Now with this photo over here, Julia was standing in front of the sun. This was never going to be a decent image in terms of exposure and contrast. And the reason that I chose to take this photo is because it was a test roll of film through a camera that I just purchased, and I needed to put it through all its various positions relative to the sun and relative to darkness and light, so that I could get a feel for the damage on the front element, because it was not in the greatest of conditions, my Rolleiflex. Having said that, based on the photos that I have taken with it, I'm very happy that I purchased it, because I got it for a really good price, and judging by this is what would have been expected, but I needed to see nonetheless. Maybe let's take this. No, let's not. We're gonna keep this kind of muddy, and yeah, this is gonna be a muddy photograph, but like I said, this was never gonna be decent. Okay, Command V, pasted the settings, and I'm happy with this one just as it is. Yeah, check these dead sunflowers behind Julia, and this is Julia holding the Tele Rolleiflex, which I just bought some close-up filters for. Maybe just take the shadows down a touch, to just a touch more of contrast here. Yeah, I actually prefer it like that, and maybe give it a little oomph. And these minor touches here just come down to personal preference. Of course, let's get close in here. Nice detail in the glasses, nice detail in the camera. Next one, Command V. See over here, the white point starts mostly over here, so let's take it over. All the way over, so we can really get a nice contrast. And you see how this is all dark over here, and I'd say that you can get more of a gradient here, and that's because our black point is roughly over here, whereas we've taken it over based on the previous photo setting. So let's just take it over. There's a bit of a muddiness to it, and that is because the sun is just over here, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, the sun is over here somewhere. I think I'm happy. This actually might be somewhat nice if we blow out the sky, proper increase in the... No. Subject to change, of course. Command V. Remember that part of the video where I told you might be a little bit disappointed with how straightforward this is? This is all that I do. With my black and white photos, this is all that I do. I just look at the curve and take the white points to the white point and the black point to the black point, and just tweak it ever so slightly from there, depending on the muddiness of the photo. Command V. This is also quite muddy. The sun is over here in this photo. Sun is over here. See, there is a bit of a black point here, but let's see if we can just... There. I prefer that contrast. Yeah, let's blow out a few of these highlights to increase the contrast, because what's important here is the subject, which is Julia and her camera. This is Julia at IKEA. See, we've got the white point all the way over here, which is why you've got this underexposed looking image here. So let's just take it all the way up. I don't mind blowing out the details behind her, because her face is the most important feature in this photo. Whoop, something like that. I'd be curious to remember what I chose in the last photo, in the last edit of this exact photo that I did. Something like that. Let's put a side-by-side comparison and see what we did. This is what we did now, and I'll put it next to it, the one that I chose a few months ago. These ones are going to be cool to show you. Let's actually do these manually. Up, down to reverse it, V to turn it into a black and white, R, original 1 by 1. Look at this. So this is a dark room with a touch of window light. I'm going to turn the... I think for this one I cropped in quite a bit for the final, so let's do that for this one here. R again, here we go. Look at this. The amount of data is minimal here because dark room, window light, minimal window light actually. So let's just take this up and see, they were just highlights on Julia. And for this particular photo, I chose to eliminate most of the background. So take those shadows all the way down. So it's pretty much only Julia's skin. R, 1 by 1. Let's keep the details of this photo in this one. There we go. R, but I also converted to black and white. So there we go. V, let's just take this up. U, there we go. The most important thing probably for this one, considering how dark it is, will be the crop. So let's just use the rule of thirds here. R. Muddy photo, but still a lovely photo in my opinion. Right, okay, so I hope this was a relatively short video, and let's just leave it at that. I hope that you weren't too disappointed or underwhelmed with the process of black and whites, but I thought it would be cool to show you that it can be straightforward. It doesn't need to be complicated, and the most important part of all of this is that you got your exposure and your settings and your composition right in camera at first. As you can tell by the photos with Julia with the sun behind her, though it was intentional, that's an example of what you should look out for. Editing isn't really gonna help that situation. With regard to these very dark photos by the window light, I knew that they would most probably come out muddy because there was virtually no light except for the window light shining on Julia. But this is what I wanted because this is a 2.8, an f2.8 lens, and I wanted to put that to the test with my new Rolleiflex 2.8D. Shall we leave it at that? That's it for today, folks. Thanks so much for taking the time to be here. I do appreciate it. Don't forget to keep taking photos, keep making videos, take care of yourselves, and if you do your post-processing differently, let me know in the comments. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.